Okay, if you followed the flat screens and you saw the highlighted parts in the tan color, did you recognize what the theme was about? Those are the parts that are particular to St. Luke's Gospel. So looking at those highlighted parts, were you able to pick up any themes? So one theme that St. Luke is known about when he writes about Jesus is he's known to write about the gentleness of Jesus. So only St. Luke tells us that Jesus wanted to celebrate the Passover with his disciples, and when the servant's ear got cut off, Jesus healed it. And St. Luke tells us that not only did Jesus consecrate the bread into his body, but that the body is given for us. And of course, the famous part in St. Luke's Gospel, well known, one of the crucified criminals has a repentant heart, and he asks Jesus for mercy, and Jesus gives him more than he desires. Jesus gives him heaven immediately at the point of death. Now, we've talked before about the 7 falsehoods of God. If ever we are tempted to believe one of these about God, so we've talked especially about that subconscious belief, we think God is unreliable or transactional God. We go to God, but only to get things from him. If ever we're tempted to fall back into one of these temptations, it's really helpful to meditate on St. Luke's Gospel. Now, for me, I've mentioned my default temptation is judgmental God. Always thinking maybe God is judgmental. So I love St. Luke's writing about Jesus because it always corrects me. I always remember Jesus is so merciful. He's more merciful than we can possibly imagine. We heard Jesus say to St. Peter, "Simon, Simon, listen. Satan has demanded to sift all of you like wheat, but I have prayed for you that your own faith may not fail, and you, when once you have turned back, strengthen your brothers." So in every religion, people pray to God, but in Christianity, God prays for us. Does it mean anything to you that Jesus actually is praying for you and me right now, especially if we're in spiritual difficulty? Does that kind of touch your heart? Whenever we sin against Jesus, we remember this very simple addition. It says, Jesus turned and looked at Peter. He was there at that moment. And it wasn't a look of condemnation. It was a look of mercy. 7 years ago, we talked about this image of divine mercy. So whenever we talk about divine mercy, it refers to God's mercy. Now, when St. Faustina Kowalska first saw this painting, she actually cried because it's not a very beautiful, artistically painting. But Jesus said to her, "Not in the beauty of the color nor of the brush lies the greatness of this image, but in my grace." The greatness of this image is that grace that it communicates. So there are 8 parts of it that we look at in detail to see this is how Jesus looks at us. Number 1, the dark background. That is a symbol of the darkness of our sins, and Jesus enters into our life. Notice that all the light in the painting comes from him. There is no other light source. Number 2, his left hand is on his heart because that's where he made the decision to lay down his life for us. 3, his right hand is raised in blessing. Even though we condemn Jesus to death, he doesn't raise his right hand to take revenge. He actually blesses us. 4, his feet are pierced, but the artist communicates with the left foot stepping forward. Jesus is taking the first step. He doesn't wait for us to come to him. He goes to the whole world in search of the weak to help us come to him. Number 5, his eyes are looking downwards. He said, "My gaze from this image is like my gaze from the cross, looking at us with love and mercy." 6, the white ray stands for water, that is baptism, by extension, confession. The red ray stands for blood, the Eucharist, which gives life to our souls. 7, the white robe illustrates victory over death and is the garment of a priest. And 8, Jesus said that the inscription, Jesus, I trust in you, that is the response he wants to his love. And the more we trust, the more we receive. So, of course, we have that painting right there in purple. But when it's removed, next week, you can see the divine mercy every single time you come into this church. Jesus wants our trust. He wants our love. And he also wants to forgive our sins. One response we can do is go to confession. Hopefully, all of us will go to confession before Easter. Tonight, we've got our penitential service, 6:30 to 8:30, or you can go elsewhere during the week. On Friday, we're starting the novena to divine mercy, Jesus said. On each of the 9 days of the novena, you will bring to my heart a different group of souls. So every day, it might be the whole world in general, or priests, or people who don't yet know and love Jesus. And you will immerse them in this ocean of my mercy. On each day, you will beg my Father on the strength of my passion for the graces for these souls. The novena only takes a few minutes every day, and yet it's very powerful. If we start it on Good Friday, we can obtain a plenary indulgence. So, going back to the 7 distorted images of God, in January we realized that a correct image of God is that he is our Father, that Jesus is our bridegroom, and that God is generous. And today, with the help of St. Luke, we realize that God is perfectly gentle.